Hello, welcome to another live stream on this channel where we're doing some experimenting. And today I have my friend Ginger Bill to come and talk with me. If you like to talk with us, there's a link below in the description, but we'll get the show started.
Great.
Gingy, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself, Cassidy?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
How have you been? What brings you to the live stream?
I've been keeping well. Just been plodding along in life. But keeping along. I just saw you had it and I went, I've got time. I can talk. Wonderful to speak to you.
Well, it is always lovely to speak with you, and it's been
Yeah.
a while since you've actually been
It
on the
has.
channel. I mean,
Yeah.
we've kept connected and talked, but
Yeah.
it's been a minute since you were on.
Yeah. Yeah. When
Um,
was the last? Oh God, the last time was kind of just comparing notes, weren't we?
yeah, season
Um,
one,
yeah.
before I even became Orthodox.
Yes, it
Um,
was.
yeah, so that feels like ages ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but it feels like half a lifetime.
It does, but it's not long ago when you look at, oh, it's only a few years. I'm like, yeah, but that's a long time ago. A lot's happened in that time. A lot has
Yes,
happened.
yeah. Well, is there anything specifically that's on your mind that you want to talk about?
Um,
You
well, there's
you
loads of
haven't
things.
been around the little corner as much lately
No,
because you've been very busy.
yeah, as you know, but I bought myself a house and I was renovating it up. So I've just not been on this corner of the internet, as you call it, because I've just had no free time to do it.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll probably come back again slowly. It should be absolutely fine. Yeah. So I've just been trying to catch up. And it's like, oh, there's loads of this stuff that's happening now. Paul's doing stuff. There's all the new Jordan Peterson stuff. It's like, and again, the new John Vervaeke things happened as well. I was like, oh, okay, so his new show, the After Socrates. So
Mm.
there's all these new things to catch up on. It's like, I've got time. Okay, can we do this?
Do you feel lost? Like you went away and now you're back and it's like, what
A
is
bit,
happening?
actually. It's a bit more of a like, oh, loads of things have happened. That's good. But also again, I feel less lost, but also more of a okay. It's carrying on. That's good. That's good.
It is
If you
good.
know what I mean.
Yeah. So I mean, what of it has been the most intriguing to you? What do you find most piques your interest when you're looking at the vast level of change and what things are putting out?
Weirdly enough, again from last time we were on this channel, that's what I was saying. The philosophy stuff doesn't even interest me that much anymore.
Right.
Not because it doesn't. It's more of okay. I've read enough. I'm going to apply
Mm-hmm.
it. Okay, just apply it in life. And it's more
Yeah.
of the questions of like, okay, how do I deal with this in my life?
Hmm.
And it's just
Mhm.
making a life for myself more than trying to find one. If it makes any sense.
Yeah. No, that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. And you saying it kind of resonates with me too. Like I love philosophy. I think it's
Yeah.
so
Well, I
interesting.
still
And
do. It's just
yeah.
it's not more of a I did. You're not looking at. I'm not looking out for it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. I'm not seeking it, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, and that I find myself in that place too, where it was
mm,
like before it was like anything I could get my hands on. I was just
mm,
gobbling it up and was trying to get the things right in my head and ponder through all of the questions.
yeah.
And like sometimes it's like it's still interesting if something comes along and it still informs me and shapes me, but there
Yeah.
is more of that question of like, well, what do we do with it? Like what's the point of like having all these
Mm,
arguments or propositions in my
yeah.
head if I don't know how to live life well? And I think too, entering orthodoxy, that's been kind of a shift for me as well,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, I did all of this researching of all these religions, I did the philosophy
Mm,
thing, I did all of this stuff, and now I found something different.
yeah.
Like like I got to give some respect to like be focused on that and sort of the grounding and the
Mm,
working in the community with that. And it was funny, my deacon who helped me come into the church,
yeah.
he kind of was like, I advise you to kind of just be focused on orthodoxy for a while because it's like that like meme with the boyfriend looking at the other
Yeah.
thing. It's like if orthodoxy this and then comparative religions here, it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like that like you kind of compared that as a joke, but
No,
I
no,
found
no.
it kind of helpful and true. It was like, okay, give some time to like really process this. And
Mm.
yeah, that's been really interesting. I mean, but for you, you're still sort of on that journey of
Oh
uh,
yeah, I am.
where do I go? You know, I think you probably tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I remember, you've kind of become more settled on this question of God.
Yes, I
But that
am not.
itself,
I was in the I didn't like it stage for a long time. I still
Mhm.
don't like it, but I've come to a peace with that. I don't like it. I'm just okay, great, whatever. And more, I'm still in the fifth stage, but I think that's healthy, I guess. So in a weird way.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think it shows a respect in a sense.
yeah,
You know, I did a lot of evangelicalism
mm,
before I became Orthodox,
yeah,
and there were those lot of people who they jumped in head first, and it was just like on fire, running
mm,
towards this idea of God. Um, but yeah, there's something I can respect about taking the time and understanding the fear of like what does it mean
yeah,
to believe in a God? What does it mean to commit to
yeah.
a worldview like that? It's much.
Especially when it's so foreign to me as well. Like it really
Mhm,
is. And also it's not
mhm,
just foreign to me because I wasn't brought up that way, but again, the culture around you is it's kind of foreign to them.
mhm,
Because when you're around every people, the people who do talk about God are going to be the much more older people. They're not going to be people my age or even a
mhm,
bit older. They're just more very secularized
mm.
to the point where it's kind of like, great, you feel I was already a weirdo. Now I'm a bit more of a weirdo. It's great. Just go in a bit further. But
Uh,
it's lovely. It kind of it's helped me a lot, but it's also changed me a bit. Oh, hello, girl. Hello.
Ginger
Hi, Kyle.
Bill
I
and
know. Oh,
Cassidy,
I can't
nice to
give you a
meet
hug.
you.
It's
I
nice to
Yes,
know,
meet you
right?
again. How you
yes, nice
doing?
to meet you. Yes,
Oh,
Ty. I don't think we've actually ever interacted together, but I know you did the UK. You did the UK estuary
Mm,
groups and events, so it's really nice to be able to see you face to face
yeah,
and have a
and
conversation.
it was thanks to that I got to meet Ginger Bill in person
yeah,
over at the
Oh,
Birmingham
yeah. We met in
Estuary.
Birmingham. It was nice to meet you anyway.
Yeah, amazing. Sorry, I'm just in there very quickly. To say, first of all, Ginger Bill, it's great to see you, bro. I miss your face.
No, and it's
Also,
great to see you too, Taya.
Cassidy, you dropped a video, I don't know when, a couple of days ago, dealing
mm.
with because of consumption and creation,
Uh-huh.
something like that. And
Uh-huh.
it was really strange because just like the day before, I was having a conversation with someone from my estuary group about that exact topic.
Oh,
And then
really?
the next day, boom, there you are. So
Yeah,
maybe
it
more
was.
sailing.
So, well, I guess there's something about that. I mean, it's funny this little corner. There's so much consumption of like ideas, and I mean, I'm an artist. I'm a filmmaker, and I think you're a filmmaker as well. Is that right? Yeah,
Trying to be.
aren't we all? But yeah, there's that pattern of like, how do you balance that? And just a world. I deal with um, overconsumption at times, where I get in these cycles where it's more than healthy. And yeah, I really struggle to find that balance with it. So I'm glad I'm not the only one struggling with that and like trying to grasp at the answer to that question.
I mean, prior to the estuary, prior to Paul's entire Euro tour, I was just consuming from this little corner. I wasn't really on Discord, not really. I mean, I
Mm,
joined there, but it was
Mm,
too far gone for me to jump on that wave. And I was just taking in from every angle. Paul's dropping a video, Viveki, Peugeot, just taking in so much, and it felt like, okay, now what? I mean, the the closest thing I got to action was going to church weekly, but
mm,
that doesn't give an outlet for this little corner. It's just
yeah.
practice that's good for me. But yeah, it's and then thanks to you guys, Matthias, you like organizing the Germany festival, that kind of spiraled into the Euro tour, and then it's just this crazy madness which led to
yeah.
me going from overconsumption to actually participating in real life. So I came in to say thank you for that.
Oh, well, no, thank you for helping that part of the tour too. You know, we did it to, help with the German community, but being part of the online community for a long time, I always knew there is a limitation to the online part of this. It's very helpful. I'm grateful for it, but there's a limitation to it. If we can find ways to ground that in real life, it's going to be more sustainable and more helpful. And it takes people like you to like go out and be willing to say, I'm going to take on the work of what it is to do an estuary group, because it's not easy. And it's,
No.
you know, it's a time commitment that, you know, in many ways doesn't get a return for the time you put in it. But, you know, in some ways you get a lot of value from it. So I'm glad we could help. And, you know, always stay in contact if there's any way I can help you in the future, or, you know, whatever.
Thank
Let
you.
me know.
Appreciate it. Ginger Bill, I'll drop my number in the chat. Drop me a message, because
Yeah, I will do. Don't worry. Yeah.
Gingy, how far away are you from Tayo's estuaries?
Well, the Birmingham one is not far. That one it's a drive, but it's not that bad for me.
Mm.
Like, 'cause I met the Birmingham one. The Manchester one is a bit too far away. I've not been able to do any Manchesters. I've not been going to the estuaries anyway, just because I've had no time. And that was lovely when we met in a few months ago. It was more of I had a week free. It was lovely. So I just planned that out, because again, the weekend afterwards, the weekend that came afterwards, so I met Paul van der Klee for the first time. Just when I met him, had a big old bear hug. That was great.
He's
so
tall.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, no, he's as tall as I expect. But it was lovely to meet him in person finally. More of a
Yeah, just dropping in, guys. I'll chat to you
Yeah.
later. Thanks for all you guys do. Cassidy,
Yeah.
keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Good. Good.
Yeah, where were we? Yeah, have you been able to go to any of the estuary groups?
Only that one, literally a few months ago. That was it.
Yeah, I
And,
mean, you probably still had chaos from your personal.
Oh, it was chaos for personal life. That was pretty much it. And that's fine. But no, there's always different groups to do. There's none that's still very local to me, as in like, oh, it's like 20 minutes away or something. No, it's more of this one. That one was still like 40-45 minutes away.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a journey still, but
right.
Yeah.
Like for once a month or what have you, it's like it's doable.
It's doable, yeah. In fact, I used to do that drive every day for work, but it was more of a. But it's one of those now that it is technically out of my way, so it's not. It's not the distance that's the problem necessarily. It's just more of a it's gone out my schedule for this. It would have to become part of my routine in that sense.
Right.
You have to do it, which is fine.
All right. So we were kind of talking about your process in, the whole meaning part of this, of like trying to make sense of the faith. You're past the fear part in a sense. But what's the next stage?
I'm taking it one step at a time. That's all I can say, and that's all I've ever done. Because again, these past, how do I put it? Literally, these past 3 years for me have been insane. If I actually explained it on paper to people, they would go, "What?" Literally, like it's kind of a very surreal how my life has been, and it hasn't stopped. So all I can say. The best language I've got is thanks for the grace of God. That's literally all I can say because I'm enjoying the ride. Yeah.
Well, at least you got that in your corner. You're enjoying the ride.
No, I'm enjoying the ride, seeing where it goes, even if it is a bit wacky at times. Let's say again for you though, it's probably just has been as wacky as mine. I'm guessing in so many ways.
Well, and I don't know your story, but like for me, it feels kind of wackier. It's I went from 3-4 years ago, I was an evangelical Christian, struggling to figure out what it means to be in the church, contemplating like if I was going to do essentially monasticism in a Protestant form, which we don't have much monasticism, but am I gonna do the single life, or what.
Yeah.
And fast forward, I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm married on a very different path
Yeah.
to what I was before. And I'm loving it. I feel so much more grounded than I did before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still look at it and go, what did I do? And now I'm living in a different country. I'm learning a different language.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think the culture shock has actually hit me yet. We got another person. I'm going to try to add them to the
Oh.
stream.
Okay.
But I don't know them. So
Mm.
could be Swimmer. I've
Yeah.
removed it.
Also, that was also yeah. That's all I'm going to say. The news. Just going to change the tone.
This is the part of the live stream that's just a chaos for me. But anyways, what was I going to say? I'm learning a new language. I'm living in a different culture. It's such a new world for me. It's like hard to kind of get your mind around the process of that. and like it hasn't hit me fully what that's going to mean in the long term.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is it gonna like remove it from
Probably.
Okay.
I hope not. I don't know. I have no idea.
Oh, well, whatever.
Well, we might have to edit it afterwards because usually you can do that, can't you? So
no.
I don't know.
Well, interesting. Apologies for anybody who's watching. We've got 5 people watching, so hopefully the damage is limited. But
I'm so sorry.
I mean, that's the hard part where it's like I want to give people who I don't know time to talk, but like you just get you get
trolls is the best way of putting it. Yeah.
So
and not even high quality ones either. Like really, really,
No,
is that what you're gonna do?
The last stream I did, I had someone just come and play music and they would change their name and they're like, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. I'm like, okay, well, let me give it a chance. And it was just music. Oh, we got another one. I'm just sorry. If I don't know you, you're not getting on. So, sorry. But anyways, so moving on. I mean, that's been my biggest challenge, I think, in the last month of figuring out what does it look like to, start a new life in such a different country. And I'm already seeing the ways it's like changing me, where it's, I'm becoming far less American than I used to be.
Yeah. It'll take a while. You'll always be American.
Yes.
But,
yeah. But like there's something like I've noticed little things of like I think I used to be far more of like a rugged individualist than I was. And I don't think it's just living in Europe that's doing that. Like I do think there's something about orthodoxy that's shifting that too. But it's these two things where orthodoxy is such a cultural shift for me. And this very like meaningful way, in a way that I didn't even totally think entering the religion was going to shift that in me. But it's had that capacity to do that. And then couple that with moving to Europe, moving to a place where religion is, I wouldn't say it's less accepted, but it's certainly less practiced.
Yeah.
And it's sort of that curiosity of like, why would you do it? But I think, when I look at places of like antagonism against religion, it doesn't seem to be as antagonistic as say like Australia was for me, or even some of like the more liberal states that I lived in.
Yeah, no, I can understand to a certain extent without that experience, but yeah.
I mean, is in the UK, how does it feel like there's an antagonism to religion, or is it sort of an indifference? Because that's what
it's an antagonism. It's not really an
Mm.
indifference. This is where it gets weird. It's more of there's different types of religions out there and such, and because, like we say, the dominant one was Christian. I think the current
Mm.
census now said that I think less than a majority of the country is now Christian, which it used to be
Mm.
back in the past. So it now means like less than half the people in the country say they are Christian, which is very big shift and change. And that was the census came out in 2021, but we only just found out
Mm.
about this like a couple of months ago. So you can already see like the big cultural change has happened there.
Mm.
But then the other thing is that it's not just that. There's also other religions. Again, there's Islam that's came here as well. It's a big one. There's also Hinduism, as obviously as well, and they're just different other theirs. But if you're saying for like, it's hard. I'm just trying to say is it's still in many ways fashionable to be like that hippie, like edgy new atheist for many people. But then it's also at the same time the new atheism bit's died in many ways.
Right.
Thank goodness. But then of course, the thing that seeps in again is the more hippie spiritualism stuff, obviously, and then also people swashing that with their other religion, like whatever that secularized religion may be. It doesn't go anywhere. Clearly, everyone's religious, and people seek one. They'll just get onto a second-rate one if they don't like the first-rate one, in a sense. And it's still so there is our antagonism. It's just it's more of a, why would you go to church? That's silly. Like, why would you do? It's like I'm trying to be as polite as I can about this as well. But yeah, it's more of a, why would you do that? Oh, you must be crazy. Literally, kind of some people go like, oh, we're just one of those people. Is he always a Bible thumping bloke? Oh. It's like, what? When I speak with those people, who are, I'm like, they're just normal. It's very much a. I think it's just people in certain circles, obviously. I've just seen the chat. I said, oh, yeah. I said, hello, Paul. Hello. And hello, Mark and Luke. I've just seen the chat now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's... have you seen Nathan Jacobs' documentary about the nuns?
No, I haven't. But I know of it. Again, Paul's spoken enough about it. He's probably just paraphrased the entire documentary at this point for me. Back then.
Well, it's that interesting concept of like, we're seeing more non-religious people, but it doesn't mean that spirituality's part isn't going away. People still believe in ghosts. People still believe in, some sort of higher power. Everything happens for a reason.
Horoscopes is a good example as well. They do that as well, which is, again, I don't care. It's more of you take that, you'll take this, then they'll have. Again, in this country, the NHS is a good example. This may sound, again, I don't want to go into politics, but a lot of people treat that with religious fervence, really. And if you say any ills about it, they're like, it's sacrilegious. Really, it's like you've said blasphemy to them. And I understand it because historically, again, in the past, the church would be doing with the hospitals. They would be in healthcare. And eventually that became part of the state. So then people start effectively, the state's their religion because they've already become secularized. So then they still have this religious impulse, and then they just transplant it elsewhere. So it's kind of like, it's completely understandable. Like it's human. It's just humans being humans.
Yeah,
you can't stop it, even if it's very exploited.
People are not going to like me saying this, particularly on a secular phrase, and I don't mean it in a negative way. But I look at the new atheist movement, and there was a lot of things that sort of paralleled religion to me, and it's like you're treating this with the same sort of attitude that you don't like seeing in the churches.
Oh yeah.
Like there's a similar spirit in which we're operating the conversation. And I think part of it's like, well, as humans, we are sort of religious beings. We can't help it. It's ingrained in us. And so it seeps in different ways. And sometimes it's the new age spirituality. Sometimes it's politics, and sometimes it's, organized religion itself, whether it's, the Protestant flavor or Catholic or
when they say
Orthodox.
Organized, again, like New Atheists specifically, usually when you ask them to describe it, they just describe the Catholic Church. They're not even describing Protestantism, just Catholicism. And it's very interesting they do that. And I'm like, okay. And then they give the arguments against it. I'm like, you just sound like a Protestant. Literally, their arguments are so Protestant, they don't even realize it. And it's like, okay, just sit back, sit back and listen to it. It's quite. I always sometimes that just maybe me being cruel and just playing a game and they don't realize it. It's fun. I do love understanding people, and I just like love talking to them. But yeah, the New Atheist one it was so religious, and it still is, but they are dying out, but it is being replaced with other things. It's not like the people are now atheists. They'll just replace it with other things. They won't say God, but they'll say the universe. They'll go when they do say God, they'll just when they think of is that man in the sky thing. So they still have the New Atheist tendencies, but then they don't go to the we need to make fun of dumb people kind of thing. Which it was. A lot of it is just making fun of dumb people or people who weren't articulate enough to express their position. That doesn't mean they were dumb. They just don't have the words. And it's like, again, I've just saw Mark saying, the spirit of rebellion. It's like, well, it's like, but you're not rebelling against the norms. Like, you are the normal people. So it's kind of like you're pretending to be a rebel. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I've always been weird, so I guess I've never been like that. I kind of had the rebellious streak there, but yeah.
Well, when I look at the New Atheism movement and sort of the process and how it developed, a lot of it came out of a response to 9/11, right? Where, like, as particularly, you can look at someone like Sam Harris. He saw what happened with the two towers and goes, if someone can take belief to this extreme and do tremendous atrocities, this is bad. And then it took it to the stream of like, all is bad. And you can look at a lot of those arguments and say, like, I read the first sort of new atheist thing I ever read was Christopher Hitchens' book.
Yeah.
And I could read it and go, a lot of the things he's saying is right. There's a lot of bad that's happened with religion and through the means of people, holding religion as their motive.
Yeah.
But that doesn't get at the question of like, well, what is it supposed to be? What is the core of religion and what is it asking of people?
Well, again, Christopher Hitchens is the oddball of the bunch of them anyway, because he lived in Soviet Russia for a long time. He was a Trotskyist until he died, effectively. And so all that stuff. So to him, it was very much he was not just he was a very militant atheist, but a militant, Marxist. So for it was very different compared to the rest of them. So for him, he wasn't the Protestant of the group. He was the Marxist of the group, which, yes, you could argue comes from Protestantism because you've got Hegel and Marx and all that. Let's not go to the flipping genealogy of morals or anything like this. That's history, and I like it, but that just bores people. So let's not talk about that. But so he was kind of the oddball, but also he was very he's very good at his rhetoric. That's why I think he persuaded a lot of people because he's very good. If you've ever seen his speeches, blimmin' heck, his rhetoric's amazing. Even if it's talking nonsense, people get captivated by it.
He's got the sharpest tongue.
Yeah.
He's got the sharpest tongue. And like that was something of like, even when you're hurling insults at pretty much myself for being, a believer in religion, I could still kind of go like, that was pretty good though.
Oh yeah. Like, and his brother is not as witty, but his brother does is smart, Peter Hitchens. But Peter Hitchens went down the same line, but he went completely opposite. He went down the how do you put it, the ultra conservative Anglican path, which is kind of like, okay, even though he was a Trotskyist when he lived in Soviet Russia with his brother, did all this because he's a journalist and all that, but he's gone down the complete different path and that's such. It's very interesting hearing how he speaks compared to his brother. And they're not that similar, but they do have similar rhetoric styles at times. It's just, I would say Peter's not as good as Christopher wasn't. And that was kind of the interesting thing. But I don't know, it's interesting just hearing it all, listening it all to me. For me, I don't know. It's just not to be too depressive sometimes. It's like sometimes you see all these people and they're just living their lives. But then it's just like you're kind of taking what the current culture is, which is what everyone's done. Like I've done clearly throughout my life. And just, it's this weird, this kind of form of weird secularism, nonism. Nonism? That's a word. Now it's now a word. Is I don't know if it's good for people in that sense, but you can't say convince them out of people because I didn't get convinced by anyone. It wasn't one person. It wasn't like, and I just kind of, you want to help people to a certain extent. You want to see what's good for people, but you can't always do anything about it. And it's kind of like, oh, great. what can I do?
Mm. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, how much do you think the new atheist flavor of the conversation was aimed at helping people, like you personally?
I was never that persuaded of the New Atheist that much. I understood why certain aspects of it, like I liked certain people who were New Atheists, let's put it that way. But I think a lot of it wasn't helping people. It was just mocking dumb people or mocking inarticulate people. And really a lot of it was.
Yeah, I definitely think there was a part of it. And then there was this Christian response where it was just, you know, making each other feel stupid, right? Mocking each
Yeah,
other.
it was... Like, let's take the Richard Dawkins one. The reason why Richard Dawkins got into all of it, because he really didn't want people teaching creationism in like American
Right.
schools and such. Like, he was like, oh God, this is stupid. What the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
And I completely understand like his frustration with that. Like, that's his livelihood. He's a world-renowned
Yeah.
biologist. And it's like, why are you teaching to him that complete, utter, and he won't swear, but nonsense? And it's like, that's why he got into that thing. It's kind of there. But that wasn't, so he's just, but the thing was, the people who were teaching it and enforcing it, again, at the end of the day, I'm not saying they weren't that smart. And the people who's arguing against weren't that smart. On average, obviously. And I think that's why people like, it's like, oh, look, he got owned. You owned this person, or like, and all the bleeding stuff on the internet. So like, oh, this person got
Destroyed by facts and logic.
Facts and logic. And it's like, what you like seeing is a spectacle of someone who's a bit smarter than a person, absolutely ridicule that person. That's what you're enjoying. You're liking this, like someone throwing tomatoes or tomatoes or whatever you say that word at people. That's what you're enjoying.
Yeah.
And be honest about it, because that's what those people are. But they'll say, no. I'm like, then why are you watching it? Why? It's theatrics for you. And yeah, it's just.
Well, there's something very human about that experience of like I can own it myself. Like there have been times where it's like why did I like Christopher Hitchens? Because he could do a good smackdown, even if it was against me. There was something, whether it's the worst part of myself or whatever. It's like, whoa, like there's something to watch there. But then you see it play out enough, and you go, wait, is this helping the conversation? Because I frame the question in the way of helping, because I look at a lot of the new atheists, and even the sort of atheists online now, whether they consider themselves new atheists or not, I think they're promoting this idea of atheism to help people, right? They think that
many
religion is oppressive, and they want to help people escape from their traps, right? Which fair enough. Like, but there was something about that movement and sort of the movement that kind of countered it in the Christian sphere that was aimed at making people feel stupid in the attempt to help people.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where it's like, well, nobody thinks well when they feel stupid.
No.
So how is this helping? Yeah, maybe you're getting people to change their minds, but nobody makes the best decisions when they feel like an idiot.
Mind. You're not changing the mind of the person you're insulting.
Generally not.
And if you were going to change the mind, you effectively just become friends with them. That's what you do. You don't change the mind of a stranger rarely, or through debate. People don't change the mind in debates. People have debates because they enjoy debating. It's obvious, but it's kind of what they do.
Well, I mean, I think there's sometimes where it's like a lot of the times it just ends up in defensiveness, right?
Yeah.
People fight back, shoulders back, they they just want to call you stupid. But there's this other side where it starts sowing seeds of doubt of like, well, maybe I am stupid.
Yeah.
And so instead of thinking through the questions and taking the time to kind of process that and understand it, they just go, they spiral and they throw everything out. And it's like, how do we have this better conversation? Because you have to get to the place where you can say, I disagree with you. And it's not immediately cause to say you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But having that place where you can have the back and forth, and it's not just, it's obvious. And how could you be so dense? It's like, these questions aren't easy. right?
No,
Like it's
no, they're not. And there's just this huge level of hubris to assume that assume it as well. Like a good example. He's not technically a new atheist, but he's an atheist. Would have been Stephen Fry. Now, many people love Stephen
Mm.
Fry. I do to a certain extent. When he just starts talking about religion at times, it's like, oh, great. Because I remember once he said something like, "Oh, I don't understand why people could believe in God, but I can understand why people believed in the gods back in the past." And I'm like, "Yeah, I could." And then he described this thing, and I went, "What?" He was kind of like saying, "Oh, well, these people are the gods, the like paganistic, polytheistic, whatever gods, those gods. It's like much harder, easier to believe because they're more human-like. They've got the attributes. It's like they're fallible, all this stuff, compared to that like singular entity of like the monotheistic religions." And I'm like, that was his argument. It's like that's why it was easier to believe in them to him. And it's like,
Mm.
that's not what I was like, yeah, I agree with this statement, but they're not your reasoning. But then you'll hear his argument why he hates God, and he doesn't say that. He says, "Why I can't believe in a God." It's like, why would? And I have to remember his paraphrasing thing. Is why would you? Why would God let like these burrowing worms go into the children of in the eyes of children, and that cause them severe agony? Why is there disease and things? It's the problem. It's theodicy. It's the problem of evil or natural evil and such like that. It's just technically natural evil, which means just whatever. And it's like, why would you do that? And then he says, well, I can imagine a universe without it, so therefore the God doesn't exist. Oh, first off, you can imagine you're thinking you could create a universe, not just one without it, just create one. How much hubris are you actually stating in that statement? To the point where you're going, yeah, you think you could design a universe, let alone make one better than, as in this hypothetical God, in his view. Oh, great. That says all about you. That does. That says how much you think about yourself. And yeah, that's what annoys me about a lot of atheists, because when you push the come to shove, it's arrogance. It really is. And I know that sounds horrible. Like some people, I know it's not arrogance. Like, yeah, but many people they're on the agnostic side when they're really not agnostics. Yeah. But there's no, of course I'm agnostic. Of course I've got the evidence to do it. I'm like, no, you don't. Because if you ask them what the evidence is, for them it doesn't exist.
Mm.
Like they want, I want the evidence, obviously. I'm like, but the evidence couldn't exist. You're asking for like an empirical thing, a scientific thing, when this thing is outside the realm of science. Like, in fact, science depends on this thing. So it's kind of you're not an agnostic at all. So sorry, it's just I don't like arrogant, ignorant people a lot. It really annoys me too much. It's one of my character traits I hate about people, but it's also my like I need to get better at it. I don't suffer fools gladly, as the phrase goes.
Well, I think it gets hard in these places where, you have this, everybody has a different idea of what atheist and agnostic means, right?
Yeah.
So you got to wade through that of like, okay, which definition of that does it mean? And there's not like one type of atheist or one type of agnostic. And then there's some of those games where it's like, okay, well, atheism a worldview. Oh no, it's not. It's not a worldview. What do you mean?
That's the lack of it. I'll be talking about the lack of belief in that. And it's
yes,
like,
it's a lack
that
of
lovely rhetorical trick. And it's like, great, can you define me what religion is? And then, oh God, it's just, that's all you need to do. It's just.
And sometimes I don't even know if atheists realize they're doing it.
No, I don't think most of them do.
I don't. In the same way that I don't think a lot of theists know the way that they talk about God is frustrating. Yeah. And that was the hard part for me. I went through this sort of phase where I went through deconstruction. I asked all the atheist questions, and I didn't lose my faith. I went back to church.
Yeah.
But going back into church.
I mean that both senses of the word, but yeah, thank
God. Yeah, I think I would have been a real miserable atheist. I think everybody was saved from me not falling into that path.
Yeah.
But going back into church, though, it was hard because all of a sudden you hear these things and the way people talk, and it's like, like it's a struggle where it's like it's like you don't know what you don't know. Like I used to be much more like that.
Yeah.
because like it was my culture.
Yeah.
It was the language that I knew. And so I didn't recognize the in speech. I didn't recognize the game that was playing with my words. And you know, as much as I can say like, oh yeah, there's an arrogance. Well, I had an arrogance at times doing these
Yeah.
questions.
Like, well, Kira, I don't mind arrogant people if they know what they're talking about, and I don't mind ignorant people if they are like humble about it. Like, it's just the combination together. It's like it's just more of a it's like more of a. At the same time, I like really frustrate those people like you're showing yourself to be an idiot, but you don't realize it. But at the same time, it's like I just want to give you a hug. At the same time, it's kind of that weird like there. Really, but I know condescending hug. I mean, yeah, but and again, that's the thing is when you're talking about stuff in your life, as you're saying, you just don't know the language for it. So this is still my path is still going to take a long time. I'm guessing it's going to be years now until I make an actual decision, whatever that decision may be. But it's also there's loads of other factors. It's like it's foreign to me. It is extremely foreign, and if I did take part in whatever it would be. And I've told you about what my thoughts are before any about this and what probably I already know what the answer is probably already, but it would be foreign to my environment, like my neighborhood. It'd be foreign to that. It'd be foreign to my family. It'd be confusing to my family, to some people, at least in them. And it would just like it's more of a you've got to explain yourself then, and it's more of a I don't want to do this in a weird sense, but it's kind of how it builds up, and it's more of a you're fighting against the world in a sense, even if you may be okay. I come to believe this, and it's like I know you got to let people live, but it's like it's more of a I want to explain what I believe, but I know people will take it out, mischaracterize it always because they've got a box of idea. Oh, this is what X believes. I understand X. It's like no, not really. It's like people just want easy boxes to put things in. I completely understand it. I do it all the time. But it's like it's hard, and some people just can't think that way either, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, I think it's easier to talk to a person like that
who doesn't just want like things in little boxes.
Yeah, who doesn't like
Yeah.
it? I can get little pretty ones with bows and ribbons. God, I need to stop doing the jokes. But no, yeah, it's easier to put someone in a box and don't have to inquire about more that person.
Yeah. Well, I look at myself, and I don't know if I said this publicly or not.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember where I said it. I was talking to somebody, but it was like, I look at myself when I was first struggling. Well, when I first came to Christianity and took it seriously, and it was like changing my life.
Yeah.
I had peace about it. I didn't care about arguing about it. Like if someone asked, I'd get in the conversations, but there wasn't that like anxiety. There wasn't that angst. And then the cracks started forming, and I became angsty as all get out. It brought up sort of the worst in me at times. And it was because there was that place where I lost confidence in the thing that I had. And there was this sort of belief that, well, I have to figure out and check all the boxes. I have to get this all settled up, or like I settled up to some amount. And then slowly as things kind of, I turned the stones and, went through the ups and downs of what that is. It came to a more balanced position. But then I found orthodoxy, and all of a sudden, none of it mattered.
Yeah.
None of it mattered. Like I could sit and talk, and I'm happy to share why I believe what I believe. But there wasn't that angst of like feeling like I had to defend myself. There wasn't an angst of having to defend it to myself. It just made sense, and it flowed. And it was such a weird feeling.
For me, I probably is sometimes a bit of fear of like explaining yourself to others when everyone else is like, why would you do such X, whatever X would be? It's not explaining it to myself, because it's more of a, if I've gotten to that position, it's more like, I've already explained to myself, I'm bored now. But no, seriously, I would be just bored of it.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to sound insane now, but when I have, most people have an internal monologue. I have an external monologue. Like I literally talk to myself out loud all the time. When I'm walking the dog, I'm effectively thinking out things, speaking to myself, not necessarily myself. This is where the crazy bit's going to sound. I speak to, how do I put it? This is, I know I'm not one other person who does this, so I'm not alone. It's okay. When I speak to like faceless archetypal people, and
Your consciousness
then speak to that archetypal person, and then figure out what the answer would come back from that person. If that makes sense. Sometimes I speak to like people I know, like my mental ideas of what a person is, like a friend or a family member or something, or someone like a colleague or something like that. But then sometimes I'm like, no, I'm thinking it out loud, and in a weird way. Back in the past, I would have no idea how to explain this, but in a weird way, it's a weird prayer I'm doing to myself all the time. Like it's like it's a prayer, but the person I'm talking to is not a person. It is a person, but it's not, and it's faceless. It is literally faceless. So it's kind of more something else. I don't want to say what that language is because I don't want to reduce it or make it wrong. And it's a very weird thing I do. I do it so often, like it's so common to me. I did it since I was like a kid. And explaining it to someone like that again does sound like I'm insane, like I'm some form of schizophrenic or something like that. But it's like, no, I guess many people do it, but not in that sense.
Well, I mean, everybody talks to themselves in a sense, and like we all have the conversations in our head, but there's these the patterns in which we do that. I mean, do you feel like talking to this sort of faceless, imagination or whatever in your head? Is it helpful for you?
Oh yeah, it helps it out because it's, for me, when I used to work in an office with other people, people like, are you talking to me? I'm like, no, I'm just talking to myself. I'm solving problems. People used to get annoyed because I was like, I'm solving, like, sorry, I have to think out loud. I can do it in my head, but it's kind of more of a, there's no conversation going on. There's no dialogue. So I can't really do anything. It's just in your head, it's a monologue. And it's like, this is boring. Or it's more of a, I am reading a recipe rather than like asking someone like, how do I make this recipe kind of thing? And it's just a very, and I want to say, I don't say one faceless like spirit. I don't know. It's not spirit. It's like a faceless entity. There's multiple of them. Like I'll ask different things. Like it's like an audience to me. It's not. I don't see them. It's more of a mental.
It's like, yeah.
Sounding insane. I'm sounding insane. But it helps. It's helpful for me. And I know, again, I've met one other person who does this. So it's clearly not, I'm not alone, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I don't have that, but like when I write things, like I create characters in my head and they debate each other. Like when I write, like, and then I play like little improv scenarios in my head. Like what do they do there? And so I can understand it in a sense. I can understand how you'd get to that.
No. But for me, I'm awful at writing. Like I've known that. I've known that all my life, really, but it didn't really come out. No, I'm awful at writing, and I hate it. I hate text. I hate writing text at all. Like, I like speaking with people, because I have proven this before numerous times. Like I've written something, someone's taken the complete wrong tone, and I just read it back to them, and they go, "Oh, that's absolutely fine." I'm like, "You felt offended." But I've just said the same words. So I write how I speak, but where I speak, some people get really annoyed with it. And hello, Jacob.
I didn't want to interrupt you guys, but
yeah,
I saw this and I was like, oh yes, Cassidy's doing a chatting stream.
How are you doing, Jacob? Long time no speak.
It has been. How are things in Europe?
Good, I guess. Keeping busy. Enjoying life. How's over the pond?
So yeah. I don't know if you guys know, I just started a master's degree. So I'm changing my life in dramatic ways.
What you doing your master's in?
Social work. So that's the quickest way to become a psychotherapist in the United States.
Oh.
Yeah, you just need 2 years. Actually, Max, you guys know Max.
Max, the name, sorry. Yes.
Right. So he actually, he just finished his master's of social work and started doing his clinical hours. So in order to become a psychotherapist, you can get a PhD in psychology, which takes 5 years, and then do your 3,000 clinical hours.
Yeah.
Or you can get your master's of social work, which is only 2 years, and then do your 3,000 hours. So I decided to do that. But like, yeah, now I'm going to have to pretend to be woke for the next 2 years.
That's going to be a trouble for you, Jacob, isn't it?
Well, so I've decided to have fun with it.
Okay.
And so I started a blog, and I've been forming a new kind of, so you guys don't know this, most people don't know this, but in Iran, when I was a child, I wasn't called Jacob or the Persian equivalent of it. My name was actually Behzad, because so when you're Jewish in Iran, you have your secular name, which doesn't sound so Jewish, so that you can still get jobs and work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you have your Hebrew name. So I was called Behzad. And then when I came to the United States, I started using Jacob because that's my Hebrew name. And I've been using that for the past 30 years now.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm thinking, but like in this woke world where I have to give everyone my pronouns, and I'm wondering about what pronouns I'm going to use. Like my like, should I start using my very difficult name that with the terminal H that doesn't exist in English?
So you're going to have like a second alter ego. It's going to be Jacob, and then this woke alter ego.
So, okay, I'm not sure if it's going to be an alter ego as much as I think it's going to be a costume.
Yeah.
I had a discussion. I had my cousin who's like this influencer on my channel yesterday, and we discussed it. But it's, so you guys saw Jordan Peterson's Twitter suit?
Oh, yes, I have seen that.
It's not the same thing as him getting his title stripped away, or
No. What do you mean suit? It means literally like a suit, trousers, like it's the blue one with the white trims, and it's got Elon Musk tie. Yeah, an actual suit. Yeah.
No, I have not seen that.
Okay,
no.
So when you watch the Vervaeke, if you watch the Vervaeke Peterson video, it's like I took a snapshot of it and put it in one of my videos because it's just so grotesque. Like he's sitting there and the pants are way too short, and there's these white socks that don't come up to cover it, so you're he's flashing leg, right?
No, that's a bit too much for me. That's too risque, even though we had risque stuff earlier.
Like the suit. So and then people on Twitter started complaining about it, and it's like, and they didn't realize that it's his Twitter suit. He actually has a video explaining where it's from. So this like design firm said, we'll make you some suits, right? And they're supposed to be artistic suits, and this whatchamacallit, this Twitter suit, like he had the tie is like a bunch of Elon Musk faces.
Yep.
And it's meant to be, and it's this powder blue suit. You have to see this, Cassidy.
No, now that you're mentioning it, like I think I've seen it, but I didn't pay too close attention to it. You know,
when I didn't pay attention, I did see it. It was like, okay, and he's got all these weird other suits, and my initial thought was, okay, he's got some money now, and he's been buying himself nice suits, and he had some really good suits previously. I'm like, damn, that must be like what, 5-10 grand that suit must have been. I was thinking, like, I could see the money just dripping off of it. But then the other suits was thinking, like, maybe he's going through his experimental phase. Just the only issue is he's seeing it by tens of millions of people around the world are seeing it all, and most people would be in like private, and then eventually he'll settle out. He's just found his fashion after about a year or two. But what you've told me, it's actually an art thing, and it's like, okay, no, he actually has a good style with his previous suits. He already found his taste, but now he's like, I'm going to do some art because it's fun.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes more sense now.
He's and so when it actually went like on Twitter, people started complaining about it. Like I saw on my feed that somebody put a picture of the suit and asked, "Men, what keeps you from dressing like this?" You know that meme? And it's like, and people were like discussing it on Twitter. It was just the funniest thing, and I was like, well, hey, if you're actually being
So I'll be right
playful
back.
with critical theory, did you guys? What about the Oxford debate? Did you watch the Oxford debate on woke culture?
I saw the piece from what's his name? The guy from
Konstantin Kisin?
Trigonometry. Yeah.
Okay,
I saw
so-
that piece, and then I saw a little bit of James Lindsay's part, but I
Okay.
didn't get too far.
Okay, so yeah, the Konstantin Kisin one is the one that went viral.
Viral. Mhm.
Yeah, but because it was very thing. But what happened with James Lindsay is, by mistake, they invited him to debate the wrong side.
Well, that's what I was wondering a little bit, because I knew James Lindsay, and I saw him on the pro side, and I was a bit confused, and then I was just like, I moved on. But
Right. So they
It was
made a
natural.
mistake and they put him on, and they asked him to debate the wrong side. And the thing is, what he did was he was like, yeah, I'll debate it. And he gave a woke, like he gave a woke presentation, which was absolutely masterful. And I was like, this is how you do it. And so over the past couple of weeks, I've really been thinking about how I am going to approach this. And I'm thinking I'm going to approach it like Jordan Peterson and James Lindsay. So I started a Substack, MS Woker, and my Twitter is, and I'm like kind of reinventing myself. Partially, I have to say, so you guys know Zach, right? St. Zacharias.
Mhm.
This partially came out of a discussion I had with him. I'm sorry, I'm taking over this discussion.
No,
It's
it's
fine.
fine.
I can always take
Part of
over any
it.
minute. It's fine. I can easily do that.
Gingy
So-
had his hour.
Yeah, it's
But
fine.
the reason I saw this was going on was I was about to start a Just Chatting stream on my channel, and I come on and I'm like, Cassidy's having one, so I just jumped on yours. But oh, and by the way, big things are happening, but I can't announce them yet with Just Chatting stuff.
Mhm.
But big things are happening. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks, big announcement.
Ooh.
But what was I saying? So part of it is I was talking to Zach, and you know what I've realized a lot more very recently, and certainly in the last 2 years. Growing up, I always thought myself as like this really conservative Republican, and I'm not conservative at all. I'm actually very, very progressive. I was just surrounded by insane, stupid, regressive liberalism. And so I came up, my identity became this conservative Republican. And like, I'm not actually conservative.
Hmm.
I'm actually very, very, I mean, I'm more progressive than these regressive. And like, when I look at the people that I really admire, like Glenn Greenwald, for example, like he's one of my heroes. Like he's not a conservative.
Nope.
And the fact that they call him a conservative, like, and they do, should he be like, yes, I'm a conservative Republican. I'm not. I'm totally rethinking this. At the same time, I'm kind of leaning into my master's degree because I've really been wondering, like, okay, so what do I do? When I like my textbook? Oh my God, you have to. I put some screenshots on my Twitter of what's in my textbook, like. This was in like, this is first class textbook introductory chapters, right?
Mm-hmm.
They start talking about Donald Trump, and the citation in the textbook, like it's inline citation, so it's not even a footnote. Inline citation in the textbook for their discussion of Donald Trump was literally a link at the URL of Huffington Post topic Trump administration. Not a particular article, just the Huffington Post's view.
And this is a printed textbook.
administration
This is what, yeah.
is the foundation of what the textbooks like. And this is
High quality textbook. And I guess you had to pay a lot of money for that textbook as well.
Well, actually, thank God, no.
Oh, good. It was one given free because it's introduction.
Although the class is very expensive, but like this is chapter 2 of the first textbook of the introductory class to the thing, right? And it's like, so what do I spend the discussions as a as like defending Donald Trump? And I was like, no, I don't. And so even though I ended up turning my assignment in late, I wrote this essay, and it's mostly available on my Substack for free. Message me, I'll send it to you if you actually want to read it. You don't have to pay for my Substack. But the reason I put it behind a paywall is just because I don't want my assignments on, like, I'm actually going to
search engines, yeah.
assignments from class. So like, I wrote this whole essay about how the textbook was reinforcing a left-right, like liberal conservative binary, and putting women in traditional gender roles, and like criticizing it all the way from the left. But every single one of the critiques are actually were actual critiques that I support. Like, I think it's absolutely ridiculous how the textbook was written. And if I'm going to criticize it, why don't I criticize it in a way that is actually like productive and leans into what my program is teaching, as opposed to fighting it? Like, why am I fighting it? So I decided to lean in.
Yeah. I mean, when I was doing a PhD and then I quit after about 11 months because I hated academia, I remember one of the first things I had to do in the first week, I had all these introductory courses, and one of them we had to do was a diversity and crap, you can guess the next letters course. And it was like, okay, it was diversity and culture. That was what it was, diversity and culture and other things related. And the thing what they did was in this course, and I went like, okay, what are we going to do? And I wasn't going to just play into it. I was saying, you know what? I'm going to have fun with this, but have fun in a way that I'm like, no, I'm going to take it seriously. And it wasn't like show offy. It was more of this is beneath me kind of view. Like, I had to go to it. It was one of those mandatory things. I went, okay, I'm doing this. And I'm like, fine, whatever. But we first off, they started talking about cultures, and they asked people where they come from around the world. What do they view themselves like? What do they view themselves like? He went around, it was like, okay, this person, he's Chinese. He said he was Chinese. The Scotsman said he was Scottish. The Irishman said he was Irish. The Dutchman said he was Dutch. And then all of the English, except for me, they all went, I'm British, I'm British, I'm British. Didn't say English. Notice they said British. And then they got to me and I went, I'm an Englishman. So I just set the entire tone. They went, and they all looked at me and went, oh. And I went, yeah. But after a while, some people actually gathered what I was doing. But it was fine. Those actually became nice colleagues to work with anyway. They were nice people. But actually, one of them was actually a big fan of Jordan Peterson, in fact. So that was kind of one of those things. But instead of doing that, and then they were asking us, like, they had to get in the group table and says, okay, and you ask us, what do you mean? What would culture does mean? And I went, right, here's the etymology, where it comes from, derives from the word cult, does this thing, and things like this. And I went, okay. I said, oh, here's the etymology. Like, for instance, Chinese culture is going to be very much more different to the Western culture and stuff like that. And he was like, so just like trying to play them at their own game and take it seriously, but also going like, yeah, you're teaching stuff like I'm like, you can take this seriously and go in a nice productive manner, but like I had to force go through this stuff, so I'm like, great, I'm playing at your own game, and it was fun, but it was also a like, I am not agreeing to this kind of stance, because I'm more I wouldn't be happy with myself if I did. So kind of a very weird thing, if you know what I mean. So I know what you're doing, Jacob, in the first stance, like, yeah, you can usually out left the left, and that's always like taken from their own stance, say, no, this is where you should go. But I don't know, that's just me. I enjoyed that. It still sticks in my mind. But I remember also speaking to another colleague, like he'd already been working there, and I remember him having to go through, he said, I had to go through this what was it, unconscious bias training course he did. And I said, I said to him, that's been debunked since the 1930s, right? Because it's non-falsifiable. Yeah, 1930s. And he went, what? And he went, and then I was explaining to him, well, yeah, of course it's non-falsifiable. Like, he's a scientist, he does it for a living. And he's like, well, yeah, of course it's non-falsifiable. Why did they push it through? And I went, think it through. And he went, oh yeah. Like, he wasn't. He was. I think he was Bulgarian. The bloke was. So clearly, he's not going to be. Well, not clearly, but more likely, is not going to be. I'd say progressive. But it was just.
Paul Vanderklay is here,
yeah.
And even though I can't make my announcement yet, in 2 weeks there's going to be an announcement, Paul.
Oh, 2 weeks. 2 weeks today.
You heard it here first.
Well, actually, we had a particular discussion just a few hours ago. So, yes, Paul's world is going to get rocked, and rocked hard. I'm joking.
We never know with you, Jacob.
Hey, you know what? I think the most important thing about the people who I am fighting is they're humorless.
Is there what?
Sorry, say that again?
They are humorless.
Yeah, and you can have fun with it. Do that. That's honestly sounds horrible. It sounds like, why are you trolling these people? And you are trolling them, by the way. But it's like, they have no humor. Like, you could make a joke in front of them, and they'll go, huh? So you try and enjoy the moment while you can doing it, but don't try and be rude.
No.
Like,
Well,
it's very hard.
It goes back to that question of like, are we? What's the aim of the troll? Like, are we trying to make people feel stupid? And that's where
don't try and make them stupid. Yeah, that's my point was. Like, I wasn't trying to make them feel stupid. Like when I was doing my thing, I was trying to it was more of I'm not having this, but let's take it seriously and show you actually, no, you don't get to even your own conclusions, which is fine.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I went to San Francisco State University, right? So
yeah,
it was pretty left leaning. Like, there's protests on campus every day. There was requirements. Like, I had to take an environmental science course. Global warming. You had to take cultural courses. Like, there were certain requirements, which in a lot of ways, I actually enjoyed those classes. Like, sometimes the teachers, were more biased than they let on. Like, the more you learn about the topic, you go, oh, okay, it's a little more complicated than that. But some weren't, obviously had a perspective, but they were balanced. They would talk about the sides of both things. Yeah, but I think, and I wasn't quite super vocal at that time. I was sort of just in the place of like, I'm happy to listen and learn and like take it in. And I came from my little conservative bubble of Phoenix, Arizona, where, I had liberal friends, but it's a lot of like conservatism and conservative Christianity. But I think seeing it play out in my eyes, and I don't think it was as bad. Like, it just started to get really bad when I was leaving university. I don't think I got the worst of it, but seeing it play out to its extreme, I think, sort of helped keep me more conservative than I would have been if I stayed in Phoenix, Arizona, I think. I think if I had stayed in Phoenix and like had a similar path, it could have been very easy to like be more left, be more sympathetic to sort of woke ideas. But when you're faced with the very extreme of those, and in San Francisco, it's the very extreme, you kind of see the problems more aggressively.
I had the opposite experience to yours.
Really?
So I grew up in Los Angeles,
Mm.
and even though I think definitely if I had grown up in Phoenix, like I would think I'm a left wing. I would be calling myself a progressive since childhood, right? But what happened was I was so inundated with the craziness here in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is like the bluest county in the United States, one of definitely. And so I was seeing so much obvious craziness that even as a child, I was like, this makes no sense. You guys are not going with the science. You guys are not. So I started thinking that I am a conservative Republican in response to that. And it took me a good 30 years to finally be like, oh, no. You guys aren't left wing and progressive. You're just crazy.
Well, I mean, I think most of the people that I met at San Francisco State University were not like crazy, right? Like they had strong opinions. They would do the marches, but they weren't like, very few people were the ones yelling on campus and like causing people sort of distress for, whatever perceived slight. And so there's a way where it's like I'm very sympathetic to. I'm a very compassionate person, I think, and I think that's something that's particularly strong with the left is they have a compassion for people, right? It's sort of where that extreme and where I become more conservative, like well, massively changing the way that we process and handle some of these things might not be the most helpful for people the way we think, in the sense of like full love, acceptance, all of those things, what have you. And but there's that sympathy to that process. So I didn't sit and go, everybody's crazy, but you saw that extreme, and then you saw that sort of, I got both. You got and my parents aren't like extreme, right? But they're conservative.
I've just heard about it in here, but when I was growing up as a kid, the only thing I knew about politics was like, oh, you got the politicians, you got the Labour Party and the Conservative Party. And when I was about like 15, 16, I went, well, I don't like those Conservative Party people, because I don't like those Conservatives, therefore I must be left-wing, was my literal logic as a 16-year-old. It wasn't until I was about 20 and I went, no, I just hate them. Not like I don't just hate that particular party. It wasn't that it was like I was left-wing. In fact, eventually it was like, no, I'm not left-wing. Like my temperament wasn't left-wing. My views weren't left-wing. In fact, it was like, okay, but I'm not conservative either. So which is very weird to explain to people. It's like, oh, you're not left-wing. Like, yeah, I'm not conservative either. I'm like, wait, what are you? I'm like, there is right-wing. It just means not the left. That is literally all it means. So there's much more on that side. It's like, I don't know how to explain this to people. It's like, to me, I don't have the conservative instinct either, which is like, the Chesterton fence argument, like, oh, you see a fence, don't take it away until you know what it's there for, kind of instinct. I don't have that, but I do force myself to think that way. I know I do, because it's very, very useful. Like always understand, like, okay, why is it here? Think that way logically. But I think, especially in America, that left and right is very tied up with your like political parties. Like, oh, if you're a leftist, you must be a Democrat. If you're rightist, you must be a Republican. Yeah. And then you've got the libertarians, which, depending on which group of branch of libertarianism you get, like it's either going to be effectively, no, you're just effectively a Democrat that just wants like free trade and everything. Or effectively, you're not even a Republican. You're effectively just borderline minarchist, anarchist kind of thing, like paleo-libertarian or whatever it is. So you've got all those different things in America. It's just all a bit over the place. But I think this is why I think for a lot of people like yourself, like Jacob, temperamentally, you are a leftist. And I don't mean that as a bad thing or a good thing. It's just like you have that. Your temperament is not fixed. It takes a lot of will to change it. And it also requires a certain temperament to even want to change it, which is kind of the little paradox. And for me, I'm like, I've always been very laid back, always been like in that sense. Like to me, I'm like, go live your life, whatever. But also many things about so in that sense, it's not I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like sometimes you think, oh, have I just fallen into these views because that's what my natural inclinations are? Or have I, no, I actually got to this position through like, I kind of argumentation through either people reading or what changed my views that way. For me, I know it's a bit of both. I know it is. But it's how do I put it? It's very, I don't know. Sometimes just wondering about a label isn't always helpful because I'm like, I know I don't have a label. It's like if I explain my views, people go, "Oh, you're this," and I'm like, no, and then you go, "Wait, what?" And I just literally, you ask me a topic about anything politics if you wanted to in private. I won't do it on screen because, again, I hate politics. But then if you ask me, it's like, "Wait, what is that view?" And like you think, oh, "No, I can show you the logic how I got there or what my views are." But like, it just to me, again, labels. I still don't really label myself anything because it's kind of more of a. It's not that I don't want a label. In fact, I'd love a label because then it's easy just to say, "Hey, put me in this box. Put me in that box, please." Because then it's easy. It's like, no, unfortunately, I'm like, great. Complications in life of being human. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's the tricky part, isn't it? Right? Because I look at myself and I say I'm probably more conservative than I am liberal.
Yeah.
Yet I am not what you would consider a typical conservative.
No.
And so people don't like that, right? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit in those little boxes that you're talking about earlier, Gingy.
No, exactly.
And like in some parts, I'm okay with it. And I know myself, like when I look at that sort of Chesterton fence, I do have a conservative bent to me. Like I can't help it. Like I'm very cautious in that way. Yet there's also this liberal part of my spirit as well, where like I want to push out and test things and those sort of like things. And so I oftentimes I feel like this walking contradiction. But it gets really hard to have the conversation anymore because there's so much morality tied to it when we're talking about left and right.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
And some of that goes back to this idea of like the religious aspect of our participation in politics, where it becomes our religion, sort of. Paul, welcome to the stream.
Thank you. Just had to get my camera sorted out.
Jake
wanted me to stop.
And Cassidy.
What was that, Jacob?
3 bald men and Cassidy.
Hey, I'm balding, okay? I've still got some hair on top. Not much. Doesn't grow any further, but it's balding, yeah.
Yeah, the Ginger Bill, you're exactly right. The whole political thing in the U.S. it just doesn't make much sense. I mean, I'm a lifelong Democrat, and that's because I grew up in a black community, and all the black folks voted Democratic. Black folks are conservative in many ways.
Yeah. Again, it's very weird to me. It's like in the UK, like old timers, many of them be kind of conservative, but they would vote for the Labour Party. They would have done because for some reason they would thought that this is very conservative. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're a bunch of radicals. But it's this weird, like, but they were like even back in the day they were, and even now they kind of aren't. It's like, but it's like people. Then some people vote for conservatives. Like the conservatives are leftists. It's kind of just like. People be people, isn't it? It's all I can say. And I don't care about politics now. I've got to that point, which is lovely. I don't care. Like I can't do anything about it at this point. So it's kind of like, okay, let it skate by. And just treat people as people. That's what I can do.
I was just listening to Ben Shapiro, with the whole Crowder thing, and
I've seen
he's going on about making a difference, and I was just thinking, the College of Psychology in Canada wants to make a difference by going after. I mean, it's this making a difference, which is, oh come on, people, let's up the resolution and think a little bit about this difference making that you're also earnest about.
What's wrong with difference making, you reactionary conservative Christian pastor?
It's just, you just have to be a little mindful of the realm of participation you are imagining you are going to usher us all into.
Yes.
Look, his city of the God on Earth will be great. It'll be a great one. Come on, you got to whoever's side on this, what the Daily Wire Crowder thing is. Their city of God is going to be brilliant. Don't you know this? I mean, on the side of all of it, I do find it very interesting. I don't want to talk about that thing. I have been following because I thought, a bit of drama, figuring out what's going. This is, but it was more of a. It seemed that Crowder. I actually even did the math and went, one, they're really undercutting him like mad. Like the offer they gave him, it's like, I'm not saying like it's twice, half the amount they're doing. It's about a tenth.
No,
Really?
He wasn't even asking for 500 million.
No, not 500 million. No. So you have to remember, it's 50 million over 4 years. So that's 12 and a half each year, 2.5 million. He's got 20 to 25 people. He's on staff. 25 people. I think he's got 30 now. I think he's on staff. He's saying Crowder was. If you figure out his thing, he's got to do these 190 odd shows a year, and he's got to do these he's got 4 sponsors through it. Each sponsor's about 20 grand. Yes, it's about 20 grand because he gets well over $1 million on each of his views. So you just do that. So per show, he's making 80 grand. That's just on the shows, and then he's got the sponsorships. He was telling us get 350. He says about 350,000 people, and that's what $10 a month. So that's 3.5 million times that by 12. You can see where the math is coming. So for 1 year, he's making more than 50 million, and then the Daily Wire thinks, yeah, we want to do really much lower than this.
Hold on. So this, I got into this discussion with somebody.
Are we talking about Steven Crowder?
Unfortunately, yes.
You've stepped into hell, Sam.
Sorry. But it was more
guys.
of a like. You don't have to. I'll cut this off in a minute. It's just more of a like. Their offering was lowball, but apparently they do really lowball offers, and they try and crank it up. Of course, it's haggling. I know it's haggling.
Haggling. Like, what is so crazy about this? Like, he's offended that they offered him too low.
He's not offended about the price, though. He isn't offended about the price, and I completely understand it. The thing he's offended was like, great, I don't have any control over any of this. And again, he's right about, I think Crowder is kind of right about the monetization thing. For Crowder, he wants a parallel economy. He doesn't want to integrate and fight the current economy. He just wants a separate thing entirely. And that's kind of he wants to be secure in itself. And like, I can completely understand that.
But how is Daily Wire not separate?
First off, they're not independent. They're owned by a massive corporation already, isn't it? Ben Key, whatever I think it's called already, and it's a massive corporate, many different corporations. A lot of their sponsorships are also other things that relate things. They are still part of the kind of thing. They're trying to, in many ways, they are grifters. I've never liked Daily Wire. Sorry, I thought you were on
So,
and say,
so Paul, what stage of the negotiating process are you in with your $50 million contract with Daily Wire?
They said 50, and I said, boy, I don't know if I can make it on that.
Oh, it's 50 enough, really? But no, it's just, oh God, it's just, I'm sorry.
I just have to go home to the wife and say, rice and beans, honey, rice and beans.
I was watching Peugeot's video today about Exodus, and he's in, I think, Miami or at his hotel while he's working on Exodus 2.0. And part of me was crossing my mind. I really hope that Peugeot's getting a good cut out of this because he deserves it. I think that he's worked in relative obscurity for a long time for Mint to be ready for this.
Well, I want to, I just finished my rough draft for Sunday. I have to go visit some people in the church. I have my son in town today, so I'm kind of in a rush. But I really want us to, in this little corner, to have, and I'm glad Jacob's here for this because this goes right into his group of 13 scheme. I really want us to figure out money because I've been thinking about doing something more with my Patreon because I've done nothing with it. And I was thinking of entitling it "Pay to Play with PVK" because that nicely rhymes. But I have such church. I'm so comfortable with sort of the way church handles money, and I just don't know. I just don't know how to deal with this whole world.
I'm glad this discussion came up because in the next 2 weeks, I am going to nominate a new czar who is going to be the king of this corner, and tell everyone exactly what to do, and force them, be a leader exactly like Jesus said, who lords it over everyone. Um,
I'm so glad you used the word czar, because czars and Jews have such a lovely history together.
Yeah, you know, because I love nothing more than authoritarianism, and it is definitely going to be an authoritarian commander who is going to.
You can take the Jew out of the Islamic Republic, but you can't take
The Islamic Republic has. Oh my God, you know me so well, Sam. But okay, it's not official, but the executive director is kind of set.
Really?
Yes.
Good for you,
And-
Jacob. Congratulations.
I am ecstatic. I handed over the rights to the discussion group to the board of directors to him earlier today, and it was like, out of my hands. I'm gone. I'm not actually gone, but
No.
it's his baby now, not mine. And so, but that's the thing. Like, and in talking to some people about some of the projects we're having, and there's an really exciting project that Michael Sartori is working on, if you don't know. And it's far more exciting than anything that I have done. And if you haven't, he hasn't officially announced it yet, but like he's kind of announced it. It's really, really great. And so Michael Sartori, go look at his channel and the stuff he's. And I said to Michael, I don't think you know what a 990 is. I'm pretty sure he doesn't know what a 990 is. My hope is that this, it's quite likely going to be called the Joyful Mother of Children Foundation, comes from Psalms. Joyful Mother of Children. You can Google it. It's from Psalms. It's part of the Hallel. And my hope is that this foundation is going to make it so that you never know what a 990 is. I want you not to ever know what a 990 is.
Well, Ginger
990
Bill's in the UK, so it makes
What?
it easier for him not to worry about.
Yeah, all I'm
nonprofit
hearing is,
tax
why are we
forms.
talking about 990
Yeah,
as
it's
a
a-
number?
it's a-
Like,
it's
it's
a
good.
tax-
It's
it's
a
a
number. It's
tax
10 off
form.
1,000.
That's
So-
the number
so-
of people going to get into Jacob's heaven. So anyway,
Yeah.
So Paul, what do you have in mind in terms of money for what's your vision for getting your act together besides pay to play?
Are you going to join Crowder's network?
well, I'm waiting for a call from Steven, because me and Steven Crowder, we work so much
Yeah.
alike.
You like that? You like that? You look similar. You got similar values. You're all
Prove
kind
me
of-
wrong.
Yeah.
Change my mind. I was just thinking of having some tiers in Patreon and doing some things. I mean, right now, for people to get rando slots, they have to sort of wait to try and get something on the Calendly, which is fine. I always want to keep a space open, which is, you don't need money to talk to me. But there are people who want to play at a different level, and they have the resources, and this would give them some access. And so I do some events with patrons over, let's say, $10. You'll probably get access to, if I post things on my channel early, like sometimes they're sitting in the queue because I kind of dole them out patiently. You could get early access to them. Maybe, can play around with titling and some of that stuff. $25, you could probably get some more exclusive online and offline group chats, kind of do the Peterson thing. For $100, you get a guaranteed rando slot. So, but that's a lot of money. I mean, that's a lot of money. So, but I don't know. I was thinking of playing around with something like that to see if it worked, but temperamentally, I just I just
How
don't like it.
much does the Dutch church and the Dutch background emphasize frugality and simplicity? Is there a fair amount of like that in your theological history?
Yeah, and it really drives my wife crazy.
Oh, wait, is that a problem? I must be Dutch then or something. I don't know. But God, I hate spending money, but I've had to do loads for the past few months. But it's like I for you, I don't think you should be doing any of that, Paul. But that's me. Just don't take my.
No, I really want to hear this input.
And I don't, because for you, I'm like, you've got your church to deal with. Yes, people can give you money, but the question is, what would the money be for? Is first thing. And to me, it's just like, yeah, but how do I put it? People want to do the randos chats with you and have the conversations, have the conversations, but the like kind of asking people to pay for it, it's kind of more of a yes, it means prioritizes it, you'll pay for the people who want to do it, but then it's also kind of more of a I don't know, I don't want to say the word, but in a weird sense, to me, even though I do it for a living, it still feels like prostitution in a sense, kind of a like sorry.
Well, what do they think they're getting for $100?
No. By the way, I am a complete capitalist, but no. The point is, for this particular thing, for what he's doing, it's more of it seems out of the ordinary for Paul. If it was consulting for a business or consulting for like other things like this, but if you're having a one-to-one conversation with a friend, as in you're trying to have a friendship, that sounds wrong. I don't pay for a friendship. That sounds like a prostitution to me. If I'm paying for work, if I'm paying for anything else, that's different. This doesn't sound like a work job or a favor in a sense. So it's not a communist view. That is very much a, why would you even do this?
Because
it's valuable.
Because our society, and this is part of like me becoming a therapist, psychotherapist.
Yeah. By the way, this is very also American. You have to remember what you were saying. Like, I'm not an American, so it's like also to me, like people. This is not criticism, by the way. Please do not take this as criticism. Americans are very open about talking about they're going to their therapist and talking about it all the time. You hear it in this country, but like, why would you be talking about that? That's very private. It is, but it's like in American people open about
Germany
it.
is the same way, yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, by the way. But it is such a common thing.
Is a psychotherapist a prostitute?
No.
What?
But it's
where are we going here?
You're like,
I'll be very careful
talking to
here.
someone-
I'll be very careful, Jacob. I know it's offending because I'm directing it direct to you, and it's kind of like you want to do this, and you clearly do in your master's degree. And I'm not trying to offend you this, but for me, for Paul does this for free already. He does this at his charity, and clearly. But that's the thing is when you go into a psychotherapist, yes. But my problem is, I don't see a priest as the same as a therapist. That's me. I don't know why.
How about the parallel contrast with Peugeot? Because Peugeot, I think, has tiers and a Patreon and access. He just announced his Q&A is not going to be open to the public. It's going to be behind a paywall and yada 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 and stuff like that. But Peugeot's a little bit different because he's not clergy. He is not attached to a specific church. I'm sure he goes to a church, but he's in that weird sort of liminal space where he's one of the most public Orthodox figures on the internet, but he has no official position, right? And that is a little bit different with you, Paul, because you are, a pastor. So.
And people already give me money on Patreon.
That's
the
true.
people have been giving me money on Patreon, getting nothing for it.
Well, that's like tithing, right? That's a free will offering.
Yeah,
I
would say that's a
different
different thing. Yeah, there's a difference things like tithing or just saying, hey, here's some money, you do what with you wish. I think you good cause, keep carrying on. Compared to, I'm going to pay you because I want to chat to you and I want to be the top of the queue kind of thing. It's very much I understand it's a way of getting brilliant ways, signaling pricing so you can get priorities, so you can do all this. Like it makes sense, but it's just something off about it. And no, Jacob, it isn't communist. I'm probably more capitalist than most people. But that is kind of more of a. There's something off about it. It feels like you're paying for a friendship, which isn't the same as like going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. You're paying for a doctor to help you for the things. It's this weird odds to me, and I can't. I'm just saying it out loud, obviously.
I want to hear this because these are.
I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to explain this.
Things in my head that are talking back and forth on this.
Yeah, and I just don't know how to phrase it like another way. Like I don't pay my friends. to talk to me because they wouldn't be my friends.
Luke wants it known that he doesn't like this.
Yeah.
And
Of course, Luke doesn't
he
like.
says
this.
scaling will destroy this, and it's not serving the machine. ...
Because he's
Yet.
selfish and he wants to keep it for
Hold on,
himself, and he doesn't care about
All right,
the rest of the world.
let's not be insulting someone who's not even on the stream right now.
He
I'm
couldn't be
just
on the stream if he
relying.
was.
I'm just relaying his message. I mean, it's tricky balance, right? Because the minute you exchange what you're doing for money, you're selling something, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to say yourself because I
I'm
don't quite
selling
see it as
access.
prostitution.
We'll call it that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm used to the
But
political
there's-
world here in Sacramento.
Well, there's something about like the value exchange, right?
Mhm.
We've all had one-on-one conversations with you or Discord conversations with you. I think we would all say they're incredibly valuable. Like that's worth something. And I think it was valuable to us that you gave that to us without that exchange. But is it sustainable? That's a hard question. I mean, you're getting a lot of requests. The more you grow, the harder it becomes. And I'm very sympathetic to not wanting that paywall, not wanting that separation. But how do you make this sustainable for yourself? Because as much as you have a church, you're spending a lot of time making videos and talking with people who are not part of your church.
No.
That is bringing incredible value into the world. And if you can't find a way to make it sustainable, it will falter. Now, does that mean start a Patreon? I don't know. That's a hard question. Like, how do you balance that out?
Phlebas says access appears to be purchased with time around here, and that's true. And because we see the same regular people in these just chatting streams, and they're the people who got in early, generally speaking, and they're the people who devote attention to it,
and who are shameless enough to just pop up on the internet during the middle of a workday.
Yeah.
But there are some really important people I would like to see Paul talk to more, both in terms of helping colonize Paul, and they're people who are very, very busy. And like one person, I won't say who, programmed something to check Paul's calendar and notify him. Like, come on. If you really have to game the system like that, if you're such a talented person, and it's fine if you're spending most of your time, because you are a very capable person earning money, to then spend that money to gain access and come above the hoi polloi into the VIP access area to talk in important discussions. And the signaling of money is real. It's real social signaling that we need. And so to just deny it is utopian and silly, in my opinion.
This was exactly the kind of conversation I wanted to hear. This is super helpful to me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million and one ways you could go about monetizing something, right? Like there's all the creative ways you can do it. Some are going to be more successful than others, and some are going to hit and value different personality types than others.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it. It's like you've got to search yourself and what you actually want and figure out what the value is to what you're doing.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I get from the Crowder Daily Wire contract. It's like two people with different values in the way they want to operate business, having it out in public. And it's certainly an interesting conversation to have, particularly if you want to be a creator or work in business. But it's like the person who's going to be drawn to working for Daily Wire versus someone who's going to do something like Crowder does just have different values and different needs in their life. And is one better than the other? No, they come with different costs. And so for some people, a Daily Wire thing would be the worst possible scenario. But same for whatever Crowder wants to do.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yes.
Luke
Yes.
on here.
So, I mean, Cassie said what I was the gist of my thing, but I agree with Plevis. Like, the investment is time, the investment is participation, the investment is stuff that you can't control. If you start setting up systems, it allows for gaming. That's mammon. It's not gonna. It's antithetical to what I love about this community.
And you can't game the system with your time. And I mean, every system is a game. The way you orient the game so it isn't gamed is that the game is properly structured. That's why you need a proper structure, so that the only way to win the game is by doing the right things. This is what Christians term legalism, and I term God's commandments.
I think like anything, it's a balance between emergence and emanation. Like, I think Plebis left a comment under one of Chad's videos where he said, you want a structure that is all emanation. That's what you want, Jacob.
No. But I want a structure. I want a structure to emerge. And
that's what's happening.
Structure.
Well, but one of the ways to gain attention currently is charisma, right? Mm-hmm. And so that rewards charisma, which is there's merits to having a system that one of the best ways to rise up is charisma and being interesting. But there are ways to game being interesting, like, I don't know, picking fights with, some random new sect every week, just, naming a hypothetical, way that one could do that. But, money is a different system than charisma, or figuring out an algorithm that can check Paul's calendar, every 5 minutes and send you an alert when it's open.
I guess what I want is the anti-game of faithfulness. Not even charisma. It's love over time. That's what I want. Faithfulness. And that you can't game it.
So when I think about this, Living Stones, it's, as long as Living Stones can sort of keep going, I'll keep going with it. My wife is now making more money than I make, as a public school teacher.
Loser.
Congratulations to your wife.
That it's Luke saying that. Just keep in mind it was Luke that said that.
What you're saying, Paul, is I should stop sending the checks to
No. Don't stop sending the checks, Jacob. We love our. Oh, I get. Anyway, but my actually in some ways the struggle with Living Stones is not even so much money. We're not, we've got now a new parking lot and a new roof we're looking at. So, but in many ways, I mean, even if people from this corner of the internet gave $100,000 a year to Living Stones, I mean, this church has a budget of $130,000. Daily Wire could float this church without noticing it. The point isn't so much money. It's all the other ways that the church is sort of, settling into where it's at. And, I'm 7 years from retirement, all of these things. And so then the question would be, okay, if Living Stones closes, what should I do? And Phlebas just said, my dad's head of a CRC search committee right now, 100,000 Canadian pesos to give all this nonsense up, yes, I could take a job. I could take a call to another church. That would be complicated because, of course, my wife has a job here. And so actually taking another job at another CRC church would probably mean a familial pay cut, which, at this point in our lives, we're kind of this is the last year we're paying for college. And so now it's kind of like, we're going to squirrel away nuts for retirement as best we can in the next few years. And so all of these things, but then all the other part of it is just simply this. This has been really tremendous ministry for me. I've enjoyed this. It's been fruitful, and I have a question whether God would call me to another church and just have to say to this entire thing, it's been great, it's been real, but I'm going to go help these 100 people in this locale over here for the next 7 years until I retire. So, and that doesn't seem quite right for me either. And so it's sort of like, well, what then does that look like? So those are the kinds of questions that I think about. And it's not urgent because Living Stones isn't going to close tomorrow. But and then I have bigger questions too about what is the next shape of Protestant churches? Where, what kind of ministry can be done on YouTube besides just Christian YouTube? I've just got so many questions. And so this was kind of an experiment saying, okay, well, what would happen if I played around with actually giving the poor people who give money to me on Patreon a little bit of reward, but then what kind of reward? So,
well, I know that your daughter made some shirts at one point. I don't know if those are still accessible, but I would be pushing those if I were you.
Merch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I again, it gets back to that whole Protestant, being poor for Jesus thing, that pushing merch just seems...
It seems sleazier than having a Patreon with...
where people can where there's a group of people that because you can't do this via church, because basically when people give money to church, it's a donation. There's no strings attached. And I remind people of that at congregational meetings. If they stand up and say, I give so much money to this church, you really want that thing from the IRS? So you better stop the, the pay to play thing at church, because we don't do that in church. And I always want to keep, I've had it as a value here where I didn't want to be behind a paywall, but I don't know. So these are the thoughts that I'm thinking about. And I've really tried to find a way to get community input from all of you, because you all know better than I do.
Well,
even Jacob.
We could start a new meme that go to Paul's Patreon and just start doing that like we do at Grim Grizz, because, well, Paul's got a Patreon. There, now you don't have to do it. We could just do it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's how the pay thing works. People will basically vote with their feet, so they're gonna pay who they want to. We'll see how this thing in 2 weeks goes with this this thing that Jacob's talking about. Maybe that'll be amazing, and then I'd be more than happy to pay. But until I see something of it, I'm not going. I'm already suspicious of it, but I'm happy to maybe go to Jacob's channel right now and maybe pay his Patreon because I like Jacob or whatever, or Sam or you or whatever. But that's how that's how the vote works. But you can't just, I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to see that. Are those shirts available?
There weren't shirts. There were some stickers that my daughter made.
The conversations.
Yeah.
How about collectible coffee mugs that have some of your bingo card lines, about the Dominican Republic or
Joey
or anything like
and,
that.
so part of one of the people that's behind this for me is, Rod Hare, who's on the marriage thing. He might even be watching this because he does watch these things. He's the one that's been pushing me on this for a long time, because he says, I have watched a lot of YouTubers with a lot of Patreons, and nobody really, he comes at it from the not-for-profit world, because he's developed very, very significant nonprofit organizations that do a lot of good in the world. And he basically says YouTubers are not even trying to, he and Jacob are on the same page in this in a lot of ways. So it's not just Jacob in my ear; it's also Rod, and he's
Rod
also right.
I bet Rod is the boss. I bet you he's going to be the director.
No, Jacob.
Paul and Sam and Cassidy know who it is.
Paul, got the best piece of merch for you. This is a great idea. Please take it and run with it. So you don't have to write your own book. Just get and sell a blank book that says, the title of whatever the book is with the picture of you on it. It's like, this thick. It has nothing in it except a Patreon account. QR code on every page or something, and that would be a great book that you could sell. That way nobody has to read it, but you can sell it.
But so I do come from the nonprofit world, and when I was at USC in graduate school, like I was doing my master's of public administration and law degree because I wanted to get into the nonprofit world. And I did work in it for several years, and there's a lot wrong with it, and it's very difficult, partially because unlike the private sector, the public sector, and specifically the nonprofit sector, doesn't have the clear signaling that capitalism allows. See Hayek, right? But at the same time, if you're genuine, if you're honest about it, you realize, oh my God, look at the Catholic Church. Like the Catholic Church serves 1 billion members.
I think if you were to look at the current balance sheet and financial projections of the Catholic Church, you might pick a different example at the present moment.
Why? No. Actually,
No, but currently
they are
balance
sheet. You may be thinking of particular diocese, but the Catholic education system is humongous. This was one of the things I was talking about with Michael about his school that he's coming up. Like the Catholics have been doing this for thousands of years for literally billions of people, and that institutional knowledge, that Chad talks about the traditions that Alcoholics Anonymous has developed over it's 100 years since
90 something, almost 90.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And so learning, there's nothing, this is wisdom. Wisdom is learning from, and I tell my nephews all the time, an intelligent man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from other people's mistakes. And if we can't do that, then we're not being a community of wisdom like John Vervaeke wants us to be, and I want us to be, and I'm pretty sure Paul also wants us to be.
I would be all for this if we had the AA model of monies, where in AA they don't take money from anybody. They don't take donations. They only take contributions, and they only take it from their members. And this ensures that their message can't be bought from anybody. In fact, if you send if I were to die and somebody in my family were to send money like $50,000 to AA or something like that, which would never happen, by the way. But if that were to happen, AA would actually pay a lawyer to send that money back.
Really?
Yes, they do not take money from outside sources at all.
Wow.
In fact, as a member, I can only give up to $5,000 a year, and if I die, I can only will, I think it's $6,000 to them. That they're very
interesting.
Yeah, it's because they really want to protect it's a value that they have that they don't want it to be bought. So yeah, Paul, go make that book. I bet you can publish this book for nothing, and people can buy it and print it all at once. You can probably do this with the website. Somebody can go and I want that book, and boom, they'll get it printed out and sent to them, and you'll get a cut, and whoever makes it will get a cut.
Well, to me, it's not. I mean, I don't need the money now. I mean, the church is still paying my salary. I'm looking to the future, and I'm asking questions, and I'm also want to encourage a bigger conversation about money in this little corner of the internet. And the Crowder Daily Wire thing is a good opportunity to say, hey, because Jonathan, Jonathan is, this in a sense is Jonathan's day job now. Okay. John Vervaeke has a foundation that he set up, and he's still a professor at the university. And so he's managing money in a different way. Churches manage money in a certain way. And now this isn't urgent for me right now. Living Stones isn't going to close in the next year. And even if they do close, they have a piece of property here. I mean, I'm going to be okay. But I am thinking down the road, and I do want to.
And you deserve some amount of something for all of this. I know that this is a huge shot. That's probably almost a laugh of an answer. But would the CRC ever give you the chairman of evangelization of the randos, title or something like that? Denominations have some of those sorts of positions.
I would be nervous if the Christian Reformed Church wanted to put me on payroll for a lot of different reasons. And some people who have watched what I've been doing from the CRC have said the denomination should be supporting you in this because you're doing a special kind of ministry. And no one, you got my father's book.
That's the personal question I want to ask you is what would your father do if you asked him this question?
Oof.
Well, now you're really digging into my stuff here, which is fine because I'll tell you a true story. My father, when my father's church was a mission church supported by 2 other CRCs, there was a council meeting of the other church, and my father went to that council meeting, and the board said, we're giving you a pay raise. And my father said, no, I don't need a pay raise. But the thing is, my father never managed the money. My mother managed the money. My father came home from the meeting, told my mother what happened. She threw the checkbook at him. And he had to go hat in hand back to the board and say, well, I guess I really should take that pay raise. And, my father, my grandparents lived, they didn't really die with anything. They lived, very frugally all their lives. My mother her needs are met in Massachusetts, but, she doesn't have any extra money. In some ways I'm doing a little better because my wife has a job, but, and quite frankly, I think, my wife, there's some things that my wife would want, and I would like to be able to give her some things that I've never been able to give her. And so,
and you have 5 kids.
Yeah. Well, they're almost through college. I mean, for the last 14 years, we've been paying for college.
Right. There's more that you can give your kids than just a diploma too.
So I, no, this is a really hard question for me, but it is a question. I wouldn't really want to work for the Christian Reformed Church because then suddenly I would be subject to all the politics of the church, and that could be a really bad thing. And it's also the case that part of what I'm concerned about, pay to play with PVK is audience capture, because in the church, I've, for the most part, been quite, until recently, I've really tried hard never to know what people give to the church, because whether it's someone who lives on $1,500 a month or someone who has millions of dollars, I want to treat them the same, because that's basically what Jesus commands. And I think it's an important value. Yet at the same time, when Rod talks to me about, cultivating generosity among your following, which is something pastors do in churches. That's where I think, And Jacob, for all of the wrangling I've done with Jacob over the last few months over his group of 13 and whatever he's going to announce in 2 weeks, he does have a point, and I do see his point. And Jacob has been, I never wanted to say it publicly, but he said it already. I mean, every month or so, this little check comes from Jacob Federecci to Living Stones Christian Reformed Calvinist Protestant Church. And
I have to say, sending money to a Trinitarian church, like,
I know.
That's borderline idolatry by some
And
sort
that
of thing.
impresses
I'm not
me.
even kidding. That's not. That wasn't even that wasn't hyperbole.
And it's automated, and every once in a while, for some reason, it gets sent back to me. I don't know why, but you should be getting it every month, and it's a tiny check. It's $26 a month. But
it means a lot. To me, it does. It does. And Jacob, we have our wranglings and such, but I know where your heart is. And that's because where your heart is, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. Somebody said that once, can't remember his name. I think it was a Jew.
Well, someone put this comment in, and I'm going to put it up. I think it's important. People, including me, love to find trustworthy people to shepherd their money towards worthy investments. And I think, Paul, if you decided to monetize whatever you do, that's what people are going to put their money towards, someone who they trust to invest in this thing that has been incredibly valuable and immensely helpful for so many people. And is doing, I personally believe, better work than the Daily Wire, Steven Crowder, these people getting millions of dollars. Like, sure, they get eyes, but is it as valuable? No. And I think that's what people want.
And I want, part of the reason that I've always emphasized, I've never emphasized the Patreon. You very rarely hear me talk about it. And if people do want to support it, I recommend that they, support Living Stones. And many people have. I mean, gifts from people in this little corner of the internet have, if that hadn't been for those gifts, Living Stones would have been closed by now. We wouldn't have gotten through the pandemic. And that's part of the reason that the church, is supportive of what I do. And I like that model, but like I said, it's probably not the financial thing probably won't be the closure of Living Stones. It'll probably be just, the people who have been serving in office for now through the pandemic, they're just going to get burned out. But then there are also bigger questions for me about, okay, what is happening to the church now with the internet and YouTube? And we've got to talk about this stuff. And so I don't know.
Well, thank you, Cassidy. Good to see you guys. I love you all. I'm gonna
love you, Chad.
Bye, Chad.
With video, so look out for that.
Well, and I myself am gonna start winding down the chat for my own work-life balance.
Yeah.
So thank you everybody for coming and the interesting conversation. And we'll be back next Friday to try this little thing one more time.
All right. So this is going to be a regular scheduled thing?
Okay.
I'm trying it for 4 weeks.
Okay.
So this is the second of 4 weeks, and then I'm going to decide what I do from there.
Okay. You get started at the same time?
I try, but yeah, around this time. So,
Okay.
I think I was a little late. I had a call before this, and I was a little later than I usually am. But it's just the consistency of being here on Fridays to play the game and see if I like it. There is a lot, particularly with what happened on this stream, that makes me think that live streaming is scary and unpredictable. But
yeah, it is.
I think we will figure it out. But anyways, thank you for watching, and back next Friday.
Thanks, Cassidy.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much, Cassidy.